Alright guys, let's pick back up with this. So we stopped right after we spent a little bit of time talking about rational agents and performance measures. And I want to review just quickly, make sure that we're all on the same page before we go forward. So what I want, big concepts I want you guys to take away from the first part is that chart. So how agents interact with their environments. Okay, you guys need to know that agents perceive information from their environment through sensors. They take that information, they make a decision about it. That is their agent program. Once they've made a decision about what they're going to do, they then act on the environment using their actuators, whether that's moving or doing something to it. That is the basic agent-environment interaction sequence. You guys need to know that. After that, we spent a good bit of time talking about rational agents and performance measures. You guys know that rational agents always seek to do the right thing. The right thing is defined by the performance measure. And the performance measure is a series of state evaluations that measures whether or not the agent's actions are appropriate or not, based off of what has been defined in the performance measure. Okay? Questions on that? Everybody good so far? So, let's move on to something new. This right here is known as a PEAS description. P-E-A-S. See if I can make it bigger. So if you look in your book, there are more of these on page 42. If you want some more examples of how this works. All this is, it's a way to kind of write down and better understand a system, how the agent interacts with the environments. It helps you better define that chart that we looked up before, that model. All right? So let's look at a taxi driver. The things that we want to define as right behavior for a taxi driver: safe, fast, legal, comfortable trip for whoever's sitting in the car, maximize profits. We could probably add some more to this. But these are the things that if we wanted to replace actual taxi drivers with robot taxi drivers, these are the things that would be important in our agent program. We are going to establish a performance measure. Those are the things that we'd look at. Now, after that, we need to look at the environment. The environment is the place where the agent is going to receive a lot of its information. Everything's going to happen in the environment. There are roads, other traffic, so other cars, maybe even pedestrians. Probably a good idea to know where the pedestrians are. Goes along with the whole safe, legal. And the customers. Again, we could probably come up with some more aspects of the environment. Traffic lights would probably be a good thing that we'd want to consider. Road signs. Actuators. This is how the agent is going to affect the environment. Steering wheel, gas, brake, signal, horn. Display might be the meter. Signals, I'm guessing, are stuff like turn signals. Probably want to use those. The sensors. This is how our agent is going to receive information or perceive it from our environment. So cameras, being able to see. Sonar. We have submarine taxis. It's a thing. How fast you're going. GPD. What's that? What's GPD?
Most value of GPS.
Most likely that is the case. I don't know of anything called a GPD. I'm sure it exists.
Probably global
Isn't it?
positioning device.
Yeah.
There you go.
Isn't it what's like now?
It's a 1990s definition of it. Some sort of map system. Odometer, accelerometer, engine sensors, keyboard. Basic car sensors. Okay, this tells us a lot about the environment. Cameras would be the sight, looking at traffic signs, traffic light, pedestrians, other cars, that sort of thing. Think about, anybody know a lot about the Tesla cars, the autopilot in the Tesla cars?
Which is why they don't work with supersonic.
Right. So they're all cameras, problematic in some environmental situations. Sunny, reflecting, camouflage, invisible cars.
Giant truck coming right in front of you.
Yes. All right, so this, again, is just a way to help you break down the environment and understand things a little bit better. You know, we mentioned bomber belts several times so far, but when you are trying to develop a complex agent, you're trying to make him do the right thing, it's a good idea to write this stuff down. It helps you kind of plan out the process. Okay? So that's what we want to do. So we're going to look at a game. This is a game that some students made about 9 years ago. Okay, it's a long time ago. It's a dodgeball game. Top down, 3-on-3. Everybody knows dodgeball? Anybody not know dodgeball? Throw a ball at somebody and try to dodge it. Yeah, there's no catching. You get hit, you're out. It's 3-on-3.
But you can catch it, get the other person out.
You can, but not in this game.
Cutting out moves.
And you throw balls, not wrenches. You dodge a wrench. Alright, so let's take a look at it. So I'm going to play it, attempt to. You'll see two teams. You're on the bottom, AI's on the top. Now, you only control one player, and it's 3-on-3. So there is an agent script that controls the other two players with you, in addition to the 3 players on the other team. Okay? Now, here's what I want you to focus on. So the first thing is we need to establish known information. Information the agents can perceive or know. Write a performance measure for the agents in the game, and then based off of the performance measure, are the agents acting rationally? That's what we're going to do with this. You can't answer this because we haven't seen it yet. Okay? But as you watch the agents, keep that stuff in mind. This is what we're going to be doing. Right? Now, what I want you to focus on is the enemy team. Okay? Now, they all act the same way. They all play the same way. But just focus on, remember, we're focusing on AI, not the player I'm controlling. Don't critique my lack of dodgeball playing skills. Okay? So focus on the agents. So the game pulled up here. Zoom in. Make it as big as possible. Alright, we'll pick our team. Who do we want to be? Vance. Vance? What did you say? We'll be Vance. Alright, so we're playing. What's that? Alright, so I'm at the bottom. You can click the hold to charge up. That wasn't me. Alright, we got him. Alright, so moving on. Come up from the side. I got a little lost. Everybody notice that at the bottom?
Yeah.
Get it. All right. Final match. That was embarrassing. Did you see enough? Feel like you can answer the questions now? So let's go back to this. Let's do part B. What is the known information? What pieces of information do the agents have access to? Yes.
The boundaries of like.
Very good. You can't move off the court, can't move across the halfway line.
The players?
Knowledge of where the other players are. Good. On the other team. They obviously know where the balls are.
The line.
The line. Okay.
Do they know where like a ball is being thrown at like its trajectory?
Yes, they do. Okay. So I don't know if you saw it, but if you threw a ball at one of the agents, they would move out of the way. To some degree. I mean, they would try to. Okay. What else? Any other pieces of information that they know?
Speed of the ball, I think it's hard to tell.
Hard to tell. But it could. Go ahead.
When you're charging a throw.
Okay, when you're charging a throw. Did they seem to change behavior when we were charging? Did anybody notice?
They stop going for the ball.
Any other pieces that we might have left out? Okay. So here's what I want you guys to do. Take a couple minutes on your own. I want you to come up with a performance measure. Okay, now, you guys didn't write the agent script. But you know enough about the rules of the game that you can come up with some sort of performance measure that evaluates whether or not they made the right decision. So remember, a performance measure is an evaluation of a state. A state is a snapshot. So if we were playing the game and we hit pause, and literally everything in the game paused, the ball froze in midair, the players froze, that would be a state. It is a snapshot of the current configuration of the environment, including the velocity, the direction of the balls, whether the player has a ball in his hand or not, whether they're charging, the location of everything. And then look at the state directly after that. So go to the next game frame. So if I'm a player and let's say there's a ball right there, okay? And I'm here in one frame and I am here in another frame. Did the difference between those two frames cause an increase in the performance measure or not? So your job is to come up with a performance measure that evaluates the behavior of a single agent. Okay? You can think back to when we did it with the vacuum cleaner. We awarded points based off of a clean environment. We might have taken away points for unnecessary movement. Okay, so do it like a point-based system. Award points for certain things. Okay? So take a few minutes and do this on your own. Let's see what you can come up with. All right, go ahead and take one more minute. Come up with something. All right. So let's get some thoughts on this. Now, first thing is that you need to be aware of, there's not a right answer. So if you came up with something different than somebody else, that's okay. Again, this is like saying there's one right thing in the world. Okay? Or there's only one right way to look at something in the world. Performance measures, while you can establish some general guidelines, think of this almost as an art form. You look at a painting, one person might say, you know, that's beautiful. The other person might say, that's awful. Now you can admire the technical skills of the artist without necessarily agreeing with the aesthetics. And performance measures, a lot of times, can fall into that category. All right, so let's get some of your thoughts. What do you guys come up with for performance measures? Okay?
Avoiding the dot product of the ball, reward point.
Okay, so avoiding dot products that are -1. Stay away from that range. Being directly behind the forward-facing vector of the ball. Translated, stay out of the path of the ball. So you get points, but should you always avoid the ball? Is there ever a situation where that's an okay idea?
The ball is not moving.
Okay, the ball is not moving. What about this? What if it's 3-on-1, you've got 3 players on your team, and only 1 person left on the other team? Both of your teammates have balls. They're holding them up, they're charging, they're ready to throw, they're up at the front line. And you want to be the sacrificial lamb. Is that necessarily a bad thing? And this is, again, where you have to be careful in focusing on specific actions without first defining what the goal is. Goal is to,
Have your team.
for your team to win, to eliminate all three of the other players. Now, we would all agree that getting out of the way of the ball is a good idea, 99.9% of the time.
So, once we make another goal for that, based on how many people based on that.
Say that again?
You can change the value of how good a winning ball is based on how many people it's over.
Right.
But if you're the last one, it would be very bad in fashion.
Exactly. You can modify your aggression, how aggressive you play, based off of how many players you have according to them. And I'm not saying that you should, it's never a good idea to get hit with the ball. Like if you have a choice between dodging it and getting hit, you're obviously going to be better off dodging the ball. But if getting hit with the ball somehow causes their final player to get hit with the ball, then that's a win. Right? So what I'm suggesting is you definitely want to subtract points from the performance measure for being in the line of fire, so to speak. But if that is offset by being placed in a situation that is going to almost guarantee eliminating their last player, you get a lot of points for that. You lose a little bit of points for being in the line of fire. The net results in a good performance measure. Okay? And that's just one example. What are some other thoughts you guys have? Okay? Okay, so you award points based off of accuracy. So you lose points for throwing a ball. Maybe you lose a point every time you throw a ball, but you get 50 points if you hit somebody. Or maybe you get points if you cause somebody to move. Like I threw a ball and that caused you to move. So that's a good thing. Because if I caused you to move, then you're probably not doing what you would have done if I didn't throw the ball. It kind of threw you off of your game. You could do something like that. Right? Yes?
We went searching for a ball. If you don't have a ball, you reward points. You get good ball.
Okay. So if you're without a ball, you get points based off of how close you are to a ball that's just sitting on the ground on your side, which would encourage you to move closer to that ball. So if there's a ball laying over there, I might be getting 10 points because I'm close to that ball. But if I move here, I might get 15 points or 20 points. So that action increases my performance measure. Okay, good. What else?
I awarded points based on how many balls were on your own side.
Okay, you're awarded points based on how many balls are on your inside, which would decrease the likelihood that you just chuck balls for no reason.
Yeah.
Good? Yes?
You get either avoid getting hit by the ball or trying to hit someone based on what your circumstances are.
Okay.
If a ball, it look like coming towards you and you dodge it. And in another case, you have a good chance of hitting the person.
Very good. So definitely a trade-off between those two. And it gets even more tricky if we talk about having the ability to catch a ball. Because if a ball's coming right at you, that's usually a bad thing. If a ball is coming at you, that's usually a bad thing unless you intend to catch it. Right? So then it gets kind of difficult to balance that performance measure. You have to balance it based off of how many members of your team left, what is the probability that you're going to actually catch the ball. So it can get kind of tricky as far as that goes. Whatever thoughts that you have on this? Go ahead.
If like one of your teammates has thrown a ball at opponent A, and if you throw a ball, like if he's thrown a ball in the last like 1/10 of a second, you get points if you also throw a ball at opponent A. I feel like if all three AIs threw a ball, 8 balls at the same person, they'd probably get them.
So that is a really advanced and good thing to look at. Okay, and that's what encourages teamwork and it wouldn't be terribly difficult to code. You've got the velocity or the path that each ball is traveling. And you can tell the point at which they're going to diverge. Or even if you look at the intended target that each person takes, and you can award points based off of not only throwing a ball, but throwing a ball at somebody that already has somebody throwing a ball at them. Right? So that's definitely a good one. Any other thoughts on this?
I think if catching or involved, blocking would also have to be involved somehow, blocking the ball you're holding.
Very good. Very good. So you can definitely get, I mean, you could spend a lot of time on this coming up with a very balanced performance measure. Trying to balance all of these things. So, based off of what we've talked about, do we feel like the agents in the game behaved rationally?
Very general.
Very, generally speaking, yes. When you looked at what they were doing, was there any glaring things that were like, that's not good? Anybody see any instances where you saw the AI do something that wasn't a good idea?
Well, went for the ball and he threw it at him.
Okay, that was the one thing that I was thinking about too. So, if you guys remember, there was, meet him up. There was I think they were down to one player, which was what made this a bad idea. So here was the kind of the field, and there was a ball right here. One of their players was moving this direction towards it, and I had a ball right here in my hand, whatever. And I knew he was going towards the ball. And so I was just waiting until he got close enough, and I hit him with the ball. Now, was this situation a bad idea in this environment? Yeah, didn't turn out so well for him. And even if it hadn't turned out, it still wasn't a good idea. Okay? Would it have been a bad idea if it were a 3-on-1 situation? I agree. Because then, this is a situation where focused on this guy, probably not seeing balls coming from two different directions, if they have them, okay? And so, again, this is why this is tough. In one instance, it was a terrible decision, but if the environment was changed slightly, it now becomes a good strategic move. All right, so you have to take a lot of things into consideration. And again, which is why focusing on a particular action isn't as good as focusing on the overall goal. All right. So we're going to talk about a few more terms, characteristics, and see how they play an impact on what we've talked about so far. So the first is omniscience. You are omniscient if you know the actual outcome of an action instead of the expected outcome. Okay? Knowing what will actually happen as opposed to knowing what you expect to happen or predicting what is going to happen based off of some sort of past experience or knowledge. Rational agents choose actions based off of expected outcomes. On the other hand, the omniscient agent choose actions based off of what they know will happen. They know it's going to happen, so they're going to pick an action that's going to maximize their performance. There's no guessing involved. Right? Question, is omniscience possible in reality? Do we know for certain the actual outcome of an action instead of the expected outcome?
Not unless we have created something that will always do that.
Yes.
I mean, sort of, like, we flip a coin, we know that it'll land on answer thing.
Okay, you don't know which one's gonna be for sure.
Do you?
Could land on its side.
It could land on its side. It could never land. Do you know that your friend's not going to snatch it out of the air? Now, you expect it's going to land based off of the fact that in the past, I don't know, a million times you've seen a coin flip, it's landed. But is it possible you flip a coin and a bird flies in and grabs it? Possible, unlikely, sure. So, is omniscience really possible in our world?
Not entirely.
Agreed. If I walk over and kick the camera, do I expect it to fall and hit the ground? Yes. Do I know it will fall and hit the ground? No. Maybe he's like Flash and he's going to catch it. Yes.
But what if you just say the camera's gonna fall?
Do you know it's going to fall?
It could be fairly stable.
I think I know it's gonna fall.
What if you go think you know?
Well, no, I do know it's gonna fall.
Or if he misses, he trips and falls on it.
I'm not saying the kids like.
It's happened
I'm
already.
saying unless someone immediately, like before it has a chance to move, catches it, that would be pretty good reaction time to that person across them. But it's going to at least fall.
So what you're saying is, if I exert force on this desk, let me get this. If I exert force on this desk, it will move this backwards. It will push this like this. You agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not always.
always.
Depending on the amount of
Depends on the amount of
force.
force.
No, I think it can be guaranteed to go push back.
So assuming there's nothing directly
Always
behind
be
it.
Gravity
so
still
it's
stays
by
by
laws
laws.
of physics.
Do the laws of physics change? Can they change?
How big?
Could they change? Has anything in physics ever been discovered that wasn't correct?
Yes.
Now, what we are talking about, extremely, extremely, extremely unlikely. Maybe this has been pushed so many times that the friction has, so maybe I exert 10 force, I'm just making up a number. I exert 10 force on it and I know it's going to move, okay? But maybe that last time that I pushed it exceeded the limit and now the friction is so great that if I exert 10 force it doesn't move. Really, that last time is what tipped it over the edge? It could happen, right? Do I expect it to happen? Of course not. I expect to be able to push this forever. The laws of physics could change. Our moon affects our gravitational pull. It affects our tide. We know that. Is it possible at the very moment that I kick the camera is the same moment some comet hits the moon, shifts it, throws off our whole gravity, and instead of it hitting the ground, it floats up?
That'd be cool.
We'd have a lot of issues if that happened. But the point is, as ridiculously unlikely as that is, it could happen. Right? We can do this all day. Safe to say, no. Now, we can get really, really good at expectations. We might be right 99.999999% of the time. That's not omniscience. Programs. Games. Is omniscience possible?
Yeah.
As long as you know all the variables in place.
Runtime error.
hardware even.
Logic error.
Yes?
I would say yes, because the functionality is limited to what is programmed in the game.
Okay.
There's no subversion.
For example, if
crashes.
you flip a coin in a game, all the other possibilities in reality are going to usually be programmed in to be optional.
There's a couple ways you can look at this, and it depends on how or where you want to draw the line. There's several murmurings about exceptions, runtime errors, logic errors, computers exploding, limitations of the external environment on an isolated program. Anything can happen. We've already identified that anything can happen in reality. Because our programs are run based off of our reality, if you look at it that way, the answer is no. Because everything in our world is subject to instability. However unlikely that instability is, subject to it. So what we have is a nested environment. We have an environment program within our environment, reality. So if you look at it that way, then if the program fails, whether it's because of a logic, runtime, whatever type of error, then yeah, omniscience isn't possible. But if you look at the program environment, the game, whatever, as isolated and separate from our reality, then I think we all agree that omniscience is possible in certain situations. Just look at logic statements, conditional statements. If this, do this, otherwise do this. Only two things can happen. If the condition is true, that's happening. If the condition is false, this is happening. That's it. Okay? So omniscience is possible to a degree. We good? You didn't know AI was so theory, reality based stuff. All right. This is not a test question, but it is a good example of a test question. Okay? Being able to compare and contrast agent types is a good demonstration of your knowledge. Okay? So be familiar enough with them that you are able to do something like that. All right, so a couple things left. We're going to talk about these four characteristics, and then we're going to look at some sample agent programs. We're going to breeze through this really quickly. Don't freak out by how much it is. We're going to go through it really quick. And then we'll be done. Question. A lot of what we do this semester and a lot of the AI algorithms that we look at will be utilized only in certain types of environments. For example, we'll look at Minimax. That only works in an environment where there are two players, they act one at a time, they take turns. Doesn't work in an environment where both players are acting at the same time. Okay? And so, in order to kind of highlight when certain algorithms can be used and when certain types of AI is applicable, we have to be able to define environments using certain terms. So we're going to look at some of these terms right here. The observability of an environment is either fully or partial. So a fully observable environment, the agent sensors will have access to everything at any time. In a partially observable environment, the agents have pieces of information that they don't have access to. All right, so I'm going to name a game and you tell me whether it's fully or partially observable. Checkers. fully observable. Poker, partially observable. You don't know what's in the other person's hand. You can see part of the environment. All right? Monopoly.
You have the cards.
Partial. You don't know what's on the little cards, the chance cards and the chess. You don't know. It's just shuffle. Hopefully.
Almost. About 3/4 of the way.
Okay, good point. Connect 4. So games, we're talking about video games, real-time strategies that have like the fog of war where you can't see certain parts of the map. Other examples of partially observable environments. You can't see everything. That dodgeball game that we played a little bit ago, is that fully or partially observable? Fully observable. Okay? Questions on the difference between the two? All right, cool. Single versus multi-agent. Single versus multi-agent. I say that this can be tricky based off of how you classify what an agent is. All right, so when we talk about, think back to that taxi driver example that we gave at the beginning of class in the P's description. In that description, the customers, people that pay to ride in the taxi, they weren't agents. They were a part of the environment. The other cars were part of the environment, not agents. But the taxi drivers in those cars could be agents. And so it can sometimes be tricky. Typically speaking, when we're talking about multi-agents, we're talking about agents of the same kind. Okay, so our dodgeball game would have been a multi-agent environment. There's multiple agents of the same type or a similar type in the environment. Does that make sense? Vacuum world would be a single agent environment. The Roomba would be a single agent environment. What might help you distinguish between single and multi-agent is whether or not the other agents or objects of the environment really impact your decision making or not. Competitive versus cooperative. In a multi-agent environment, or even if you're playing against a human, are you trying to help the other player or hurt the other player? Are you trying to maximize the other player's performance measure, or are you trying to minimize the other person's performance measure? A lot of common sense here with B and C. Part D gets a little bit tricky. Deterministic versus stochastic. Is the next state of the environment completely determined by the current state and action of the agent? If it is, then it's deterministic. So in a deterministic environment, given a state, given a snapshot, and given an action, I can predict the next state. This kind of goes back to omniscience. If I'm holding a ball in one state, and I'm given the action of throw the ball, I can predict that the next state, the ball will be out of my hand. Or can I? What if I get hit with the ball? The ball's out of my hand. No. Think about it this way. Go back to the vacuum cleaner. Given a state where the vacuum is in a tile that contains dirt and it's given the action to clean, can we predict what the resulting state will be? Is there any chance it won't be clean?
Yeah. Is the vacuum cleaner working properly?
How dirty is dirty?
How dirty is dirty? So those kind of things are characteristics of the environment. If you have a chance of failure, then it's not a deterministic environment. If you can only pick up X amount of dirt, and there's a chance that the amount of dirt in that tile exceeds the amount that you can pick up, then it might not be clean. In the vacuum world that we looked at, where there was just two tiles and it moved back and forth, is that deterministic or stochastic? Deterministic. There's no chance of failure. Given an action, we always know what's going to happen. Stochastic, it might help you to think this is random. There's elements of randomness here in stochastic environments. Elements of randomness or uncertainty. Things that we don't necessarily know about. Questions on these?
So like in video games, they're run on generally random number generators. So you could say it's stochastic, but if you have previous knowledge of those random numbers, then you could theoretically say it's deterministic.
Theoretically? Theoretically, there's no such thing as a random number.
Yeah.
So, I think there's always deterministic aspects of all games. But at the same time, you will have a hard time finding truly deterministic games because those often become boring. So usually video games are stochastic. Certainly you can find some examples of deterministic ones. But usually there are lots of randomness in games. It keeps them interesting. Alright, so this is what we looked at the very beginning, way up at the top of this topic outline. And what we're going to focus on briefly, what can go here? Don't write this stuff down. And what we're getting ready to look at, don't write it down. It's a lot of information, and we're just going to go through it relatively quickly. This isn't for you to memorize. It's more for your information about different types of agents. Okay? We're not going to spend a ton of time